John, how are you? It's good to see
Hey,
you. It's good to hear from you. It's like
always
a
good to be
party
on.
that never ends. As always, I feel like I've stepped onto the set of a noir movie and I'm breaking the fourth wall by even being here with you.
Well, for the first time, you can actually see the background now because it's that time of year where it's light here.
For people who are new, where are you? Where are you at? How are you doing?
I'm coming from unspeakably humid New York City, which is why I'm wearing this light boat shirt.
I before we started going on, I said we're not going to talk about the Knicks. That's not a rivalry that anybody's interested in. Nobody's talking about the New York Knicks over there, right?
Not in this zip code.
Yeah, no. So that's all old stuff. We've got to worry about other rivalries that are closer to home. And I think our number one discourse is just shock jocks are pulling each other's receipts, and it turns out they're all super horrible. Like Jimmy Dore and Shank Euchre have been, that show, and us as all younger to middle-aged millennials, we all know that what Zoomers don't always understand is that edgelords were a critical part of the left, like 15 years ago. Like they were a large contingent. And so,
It was a good way to feel righteous without actually doing anything.
Yeah. Like the South Park type people were like, that was in a time where there was religious dogma that was, strangling the country. Not wanting to do anything was seen as like really cool and rebellious.
Well, it's a hangover of sort of exer lifestyle liberalism, or lifestyle leftism, where what you have to do is speak truth to power and action using your individual consumer preferences, but ultimately the real action is not doing anything.
And not that Shank was a South Park do nothing, libertarian type, although he was that at a point of his life. But the Young Turks just was very much a shock jock entertainment, who you want to do it with, Howard Stern type show. Maybe it still is. I don't watch it anymore. I don't know who does. But definitely Shank and Jimmy are both from that world. And so now that it's 2020 and they're both fighting over like who's creepier, it's like, well, you're both winners.
Well, I've had this theory for a while now about all of this sort of rise in extremist content, both on the right and not really on the left, but like those types of people who consider themselves on the left. It has to do with the failure of the advertising model.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. As the number of media jobs, like jobs where you get paid to have an opinion, basically, as those fall, there are fewer and fewer ways to make money. And as we realize that online advertising doesn't work, and in fact, advertising has never worked, it worked maybe for a brief period in the 60s.
I'd like to interrupt this message to tell you advertising works. It's great. It's terrific. It's the way to go. Hire all online content creators. Content works and people love it. And it makes people buy things. John, welcome back.
Thanks.
but yeah, as we continue eating this, any capital engine, once it reaches peak exposure, of course, it can only go so high.
Right. And you see this in a couple threads. You see this in how products advertised on Mumsnet in the UK would sell really high because they treat Mumsnet as a good brand, a good arbiter of quality. And the way to keep people on Mumsnet is by engaging in like turfery and becoming more and more extreme, because extremism keeps people coming. It's why the YouTube algorithm, you're no more than 4 autoplays away from Hitler.
Yeah. Also, just because lots of people just love making that content. I don't know. It's easy to make. You watch some viral videos and you go, "Oh, I'm so mad."
Yeah, there are two modes of selling opinions that work. One of them is comfort, and one of them is anger.
This is all very true.
Yeah, and if you watch like modern news, like CNN or whatever, they've gone with comfort because their audience is much older and they don't want to get upset. It could kill them.
Right.
Everyone else is doing anger.
Let's talk now that we've discussed like some of these models. Where were we?
The Knicks.
Oh yeah, we were just talking about rivalries and Shankin building culture. Yeah, listen, the problem with this is it's all the culture that they've built, and it was, like you said, a culture like just based off competitive anger. USA Today, you suck balls, throwing the paper around, and hey, it comes back. It comes to get you in the after enough time. You've got to be really intentional. Gosh. About what the thing that you're making is and how people are going to relate to it and how they're going to engage with it long term. Hello.
I considered doing like a Rita Repulsa entrance and just sort of going like,
I'm free.
Mm-hmm. But everything else about my presence is already so off-putting. I didn't think I needed to lean in on that one.
God, more. Getting worse.
Let's see, I gotta angle this just right so the camera can see it all the way. Okay.
All right, you're doing a Waluigi thing?
I mean, I'm kind of always passively doing the Waluigi thing. It's my single goal in memery is to make the Waluigi meme happen.
Like I said, as a guy, I'm just waiting for it to reach almost a peak and then hit it just at the right time and get max credit for minimum effort.
Smooth moves.
I'll come in there where going, it's a me, like right before it blows up, and everybody will give me credit. It's unfair. It's twisted.
Eventually, you'll check your mailbox.
That's true. What'll be in that mailbox? Oh man, let me tell you.
So, how's everybody doing?
I feel just great. It's just another beautiful day in the freaking neighborhood. We've been working a long time as a show and just talking about like what we were going to do to make things more cohesive. And we've been on retreats and mapping things out and making spreadsheets. And people think when we're not, because we can appear lazy as a show. But this show is so big and the infrastructure that it has is so big. We do a lot all the time.
Well, and also, I mean, lately I've been organizing real world things, it's one of the reasons I think the show is worth watching is because we actually organize, unlike most of the other people making this content. We do this all the time. So yeah, we've been sort of in an organizing cycle, I guess, because we kind of go back and forth between which ones we're focusing on, and this is true for both of us. And ideally, it happens at different times, but sometimes we all end up like at the same time.
What are you organizing on?
So I can actually talk about these now because some of them are like legit ass happening. One of the first things we're going to be launching as a precursor to basically all of the other ones is an application called First Move. And the best way to think of this is kind of like Tinder for projects. Like it's not specifically for which organizations you might want to hook up with, but it is like what projects are currently running. What can I do if I'm like a random person and I just want to immediately hit the ground organizing with a project that will, meet the things I find personally meaningful. So like, from that, we have other projects we're probably going to launch with it that we'll be pushing other places too, of course. But we're doing...
So it's like a job board, sort of?
Kind of, yeah. It's kind of like a job board, or like an Eventbrite almost, but explicitly for organizing, explicitly for leftist, explicitly nonprofit, things that none of the other ones are. There's actually only like one other app, and this is wild to me because it seems like such an obvious thing to streamline the onboarding process by like tailoring the kinds of projects we ask people to do to the things they actually want to do so that they don't ever get to that point. And we were talking about advertising doesn't work, right? Where every single text message they get is just spam automatically in their head. Because I know that's what happens to me. When I get like a text banking text, I know what that looks like because they always have the same kind of script. And my mind just automatically tunes them out. So the very first thing we're doing is we're working on this app. But then from that, we're also working on a community garden project. We have the Mosaic slate that we're running in ATL-DSA. Yeah, we also have, in the longer term, a prison expose and action that is sort of in coordination with the inmates at Macon State Prison in Georgia. And I don't want to say too much about what that is for obvious reasons, but it is a thing we're working on with a couple of pretty cool big name organizations. So it's going to be a big coalition of people all throughout like Georgia.
Alyssa Vera, hello, how are you?
I'm just basking in the glory of Rachel's beauty.
All right. Listen.
Are you in? Thank you. Well, you know, I've been doing it up extra for Pride Month. Today I wanted to do kink representation because, you know, not only does Waluigi fuck, but he does fuck dirty. So I wanted, so I wanted to include that in my wardrobe today. I'm sorry. I'll show myself out.
No.
So this is a disaster and it's never going to change. But what Alyssa is on your mind?
Rachel was mid something.
Well, I wanted you to say hello. So at least say hello, and then we'll continue talking about apps.
Hello, everybody.
All right, Rachel.
Hello.
In app news.
Well, actually, no. We had moved past the app. The app is like the big sort of complicated part to explain how we're doing the rest of it. But the rest of it is much easier to explain. You know, it's a community garden. It's a slate for Atlanta DSA's leadership this fall. Yeah. It's this, you know, pressure campaign that we're doing to try and get better conditions for inmates and trying to also discourage for-profit prisons by basically petitioning for inmates to be paid a full wage, like at least minimum wage.
Yeah.
Which, you know, should be $18 an hour at this point. God. But yeah, but, you know, we live in this world, right? So that one in particular is incredibly useful because it forces a conversation about how to get that money into the prison like facilities, which allows us to have a conversation about where the money is currently going in prison facilities, and it's not where it should be going. We can also talk about how the conditions in the prisons are so inhumane and just like viscerally upsetting that they cannot get people to stay in those jobs. The turnover rate is unbelievable. The suicide rate among corrections officers is higher than combat veterans. Like, and it's because these are horrific conditions. Nobody is okay after being a prison guard at a labor camp. Like, that's not how it works. Like, we know from every single time in human history somebody has done a labor camp that it's really awful. So by creating sort of rules that would allow inmates or force inmates to be paid a minimum wage, we can also immediately disincentivize this massive profit motive that exists in the prison system.
That is super well said. There is so much going on that we're all involved in that we're going to have, I think, challenges just making it comprehensive and comprehensible and emotionally unifying. But that's what we're specialists at, so probably okay.
Well, also, this is the podcast and the stream time where we're supposed to elucidate about these things.
Oh, I thought you were supposed to say we're supposed to have fun. Do we do that?
Fun? Never.
What is fun? We never have that here.
Beginning to think that Brandon doesn't actually have fun helping people.
I don't know. It can be fun. Fun is something you can do while you're helping people, you know.
Fun is really, when you think about it, Brandon, Brandon, fun's really about who you're with.
Yeah, that's why really my method of organizing is just get people together, play Super Smash Brothers.
You know,
that
can happen, actually. There is a bar that does this. There's a barcade that does this.
We need to have shirts. We need to be a real organization. We've got to get some. We already
have shirts. Like, we already have that. And now we have a new fulfillment center. How exciting. This is for anybody who is interested. We have moved our shirts and our fulfillment over to Threadless because it is way, 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 way easier on us and our extremely limited time budget.
Is it officially up? Is it on
it is.
Where's the website?
Threadless.com, I think /shop/notsafemedia, something like that.
Oh, is
you
it
can find it.
Media.threadless?
Maybe, yeah. That one.
We'll check it. And
yeah. I don't remember the website. I'm bad at these things. I just remember the way things work, not
okay, fine. We'll figure.
Why would I do that?
I didn't know that we had one, but we've got a Threadless.
We do, yeah. And once we're done with sort of this volley of summer activities, I've been planning on starting to crank out content for them again. So
we're gonna start doing a lot more. Putting things on calendars. Basically, we've had a lot of projects that have just been in deep meeting people and getting consensus and getting people on the same page, building the right coalitions. Just a big tidal wave of activity. It's funny. I used to be on the other side of these cameras, and the people making the content would make vague claims about how they're doing hard work. And I'd be like, dude, just tell us what you're doing specifically.
And they can't.
And yeah, we can't either.
I just gave a list of very specific things I'm working on.
That's true.
Like the app is in development. We're doing it with this company Vidget that does it pro bono because, Viget? I don't know, one of those. And they do this sort of work pro bono because they're trying to actually be the only not evil tech company. It's wild.
First of all, they've been this. By the way, this doesn't count as a shilling. People might call us shills now. Wait till we really crank this thing up.
They're literally let's talk about some of the work that they've actually done.
They're incredible.
Because I think it's really important. They are trying to make web apps that facilitate organizing and self-organizing within communities. So the app that they were working on just before they started this one was specifically an app to help Gullah Geechee descendants claim their land, which is currently being snapped up by developers and hoarded. And, these people are being manipulated out of this land that's worth way more than they're getting for it.
Right.
And also it's land that you can use for stuff. So they've been doing good work. They've been choosing, I think, good projects to do this with. They very much have a focus on supporting the Black community and, other people of color and Indigenous people because, that's the most effective way to use that energy, right?
Yeah.
So I think they're doing a good job. And they've been great to work with so far, so that's pretty cool.
They've been just super punctual, people of vision, growth mindset. Sometimes they can be a relief dealing with people who at least have one foot in the business world because man, you can be within that when you're working with your comrades who have their own sets of trauma around accomplishing things.
Yeah. Well, also so much of our organizing is done around and because we are ourselves suffering. So it's you're always kind of trying to push through your own worst enemy, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Right. Definitely. This makes total sense. John.
You know what I'm stoked for?
What?
Kenzo. I'm excited. I'm excited for Kenzo to get here. Which, if you're currently watching later in the show, we're gonna have Kenzo Shabbat. It's gonna be a blast. In addition to John, John's with us the whole time. John is awesome. We love John.
John, do you want to talk about some stuff that's not related to this organizational stuff? Do you want to?
We can talk messy stuff. We could talk mayor race if you want to talk mayor race.
Of what? New York? Oh,
yeah.
I didn't even think about it. John, do you want to do a few minutes on the New York mayor race, and we can talk about our mayor and her drama?
Yeah, I can give I get the feeling people get the idea that the New York mayor race has been a gigantic, horrifying mess.
Right, that is true.
But I think what they're missing is the subtleties of how much of a mess it is. Oh,
Yeah, give us let us taste it.
okay. So
Before we get into that, I actually want to stop. Let's take, because it's been 20 minutes. We like to take breaks roughly around this time.
Mhm.
So let's take 20 minutes. Let's hit our breaks, and then let's come back and we'll talk about the New York mayor's race. We'll talk about just local dramas, and we may find some fun conversations to be had in there as well. Okay, we'll be back in 60 seconds. It's just
Hi, everybody.
It's just incredible how I got here at exactly the right moment.
Truly.
The only person that missed the bell is John. Get out of here, John. Come back. Rachel, how are you holding up? Let's talk about our own city.
What, like relative to what? I mean, God knows.
How are you holding up relative to the teeming masses, and how are you holding up relative to your own personal self-actualization?
I see. I'm fine. I'm in the middle of a lot of long-term things. So I'm in that phase of the project where like the cool factor has worn off and it's the real work. Where you have to just keep making yourself do this thing that's not cool anymore.
I
Like
miss
me
the cool
living.
factor. Take me
Yeah.
back to the cool zone. I miss it so much.
However, these are also campaigns that when completed are going to be like really legitimately useful, I think. And I'm really looking forward to seeing those outcomes and the way that they will possibly change things and make it easier for us.
Yeah.
Because I mean, so much of what we talk about all the time is like how hard it is to do list building for anything and how hard it is to do like projects and how easy it is to lose people. And I think once we start like really churning people, we're going to hit the moon as Dogecoin.
Yeah. Alyssa, how are you doing relative to both the teeming masses and your personal self-image?
I'm actually shockingly doing all right, getting a lot of things done. Not quite as much. I'm doing a lot more behind the scenes stuff right now, and also just like, oh man, I gotta be a human, and I'm raising another human, and those are things.
Life.
Yeah, life's wild.
Yeah.
My family's wilder. I feel like there
Yeah.
could be a sitcom for comedic relief in these times about my life and family.
Well, I hate to say I relate, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the latent absurdity of life comes from family dynamics. Having nothing to do with that, though, unfortunately. We have John back to talk about
Hello.
the mayor's race.
Oh, but there's a lot of latent absurdity in this race.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so in order to understand why this race seems to be driving everybody insane, you have to first understand the history of how we got to here. So during the last big mayoral race, when Bloomberg, after giving himself a third term because, le status moi, basically, the state is I, King Louis, because he just gave himself a third term. It was wild. He changed the city constitution to do it. There was this big fervor about like, we're going to have a new, different mayor, a new, different kind of city. And Anthony Weiner was in first place for the entire run until Weiner's Wiener got him in a lot of hot water, a lot of danger, if you will. And suddenly, like the guy polling fourth, Bill de Blasio, who no one had ever heard of, who was the first person in this new position called public advocate, suddenly became the right guy because he was the only one saying like, well, it's 2008. Maybe we should regulate Wall Street. Anyway, he won in a very surprising upset. And then basically, as far as I can tell, he was taken hostage by the NYPD.
Because that's very true.
Like in public forums, they threatened to kidnap his kids. So he's been like a lame duck mayor his entire 2 terms, I think. Yeah, 2.
I'm gonna need you to just take a quick step back and explain to me what you mean by kidnap his kids.
Okay, there was a forum for active duty police officers, a public-facing forum. Think Reddit, but for cops, where they were all like talking about like, yeah, if I ever see his kids, I'm gonna plant drugs on them, and what? And you're just like, oh, okay. So now we know who actually runs the city. It's cops.
Fuck that.
So he was kind of running in a lame duck mayoralship, and on the margins, the council city speaker Corey Johnson, who was like built in a DNCC vat to be mayor of New York. He's my age. He's young. He's energetic. He's gay. He's very socially progressively liberal. He sort of flirts with a lot of like progressive to like social democratic norms, and he basically the mayorship was his if he wanted it. Cue the cool zone. All of a sudden, there are protests all over the place. City Hall Park is being occupied. Buses are refusing to let police board. Whole city's gone wild. And then the vote comes up to renew the police budget. And he had a chance to vote no or to abstain. And it would be entirely like for show. Like it wouldn't have mattered. They didn't really have enough votes to not vote in the police budget. He votes yes. And I got to give it to the people of this fine city. They turned on him like a pack of feral hounds.
Hell yeah.
He dropped out of the mayor race like a week later because apparently his office could not handle all the calls they were getting.
Oh my God. Yeah, I bet. I bet.
And I joked at the time, it's like, well, I guess this is just preventing him from becoming a CEO at like human rights, whatever. But, he's currently running for comptroller, won't win. Anyway, so we now have a mayor race where there's no clear leader. There's no real names aside from Andrew Yang, who's just like being piloted like a Jaeger by Wall Street. Like he's a complete empty shell. He's being completely funded by Tusk Venture Capital. Like it's literally, dude's a hitman villain. So like there's no real names. No one really knows who anyone is. Scott Stringer was a big leader. He was the city comptroller for a long time, and he was. I saw some of his early advertising materials. He was really trying to grab the Bernie vote. Like he basically copied Bernie's campaign visually. It was really funny. But like he was a pretty competent city comptroller. Unfortunately, there were a number of allegations came to man's, and suddenly everybody dropped him, and he kind of disappeared from the public view. Then there was Diana Morales, a organizer. No, she's not she's not an organizer. She worked in a wait, who is she? And it turns out she was just this nobody who said all the right things and said all the right words, hired a bunch of deranged Zoomers to run her campaign and drove it into the ground. And then it turns out she's like this horrifying Amy Klobuchar level, like abusive boss.
Oh no.
And so she's kind of disappeared. You have Maya Wiley, who is MSNBC, literally. Yeah. She's continuity Bloomberg, basically.
Gotcha.
You have Catherine Garcia, who is the most machine candidate. Like this is if the New York City Democratic Party could be embodied in one person, it's probably her. And she gets the vote from the New York Times because she ran the sanitation department well, and she wants to, privatize all schools.
Oh God. Did she privatize all sanitation?
No, I bet she tried. And then we also have Eric Adams, who's a former cop, a big-time landlord, probably doesn't live in the city. and used to be a Republican until 2 years ago. The problem is he's incredibly popular in the outer boroughs, and he's very popular. Like, he's the only guy who's like fits the handshake meme of like black bourgeois and white racists.
Oh God, it's the real horseshoe theory.
He is the horseshoe candidate because it comes down to home ownership, because homeowners are a minority in the city, but they vote. So, and then you have, you know, the Republican candidates. The only notable one is Siwa, who used to be a member of the Guardian Angels, which is like a character from a Watchmen comic that just never went away. So you have all these people fighting for attention in a mayor's race where there's no clear winner, no clear candidate. No one seems to know what anyone's position is. And as what's going on? Like, there's no one to root for. There's no energy. There's no clear idea what people will do except bad things. And the only thing I really care about is the fact that all of this foofara about the mayoral race is covering up the fact that more than half of the city council seats are up for re-election.
More than half.
More than half, because of the new term limits imposed last year.
When he gave him,
So the New York City DSA, also credit to the New York City DSA for not endorsing any mayoral candidate, because apparently they did a lot of vetting and went, nope, no one, we're not doing it. So good for them. Because like some people were like, ooh, well, Diana Morales blow up proves that the DSA doesn't work. It's like, we didn't endorse her. I don't even think she sought our endorsement. So whatever. But what we do have, it's reversed, is 6 candidates for city council running. And I'm pretty optimistic. Not going to say it's going to be all 6, but I'm like, yeah, some of them, and there's a lot of ground game going on. Like, I have written so many goddamn postcards.
Sorry.
And there's a cool and there's a cool Manhattan DA race going on, especially because they have like, again, this like complete swamp creature, Talia Weinstein running, who is spending like billions of dollars to be Manhattan DA.
Yeah.
And apparently she hasn't voted ever in any race.
John, I only hopped on before you started digging into the Manhattan race because I wanted to go back to New York for a quick second.
Okay.
Diana Morales is a great example of how Twitter's not real. Like, Twitter deployed successfully can create mass brainwashing. Like, the fact that there was a committed cadre online of trusted people who all decided to push Morales. And it's not like it was backed by incredible strategic style and know-how. It's not like she was making incredible viral videos. Part of the reason why she wasn't really closing the gap was that despite New York being a huge creative city, it's not like the Morales campaign was doing anything to break through in terms of media. Maybe this would have been her opening had she not had her own scandal. Maybe people would be looking around because, John, if I'm not wrong, a lot of the city's been undecided during this race, right?
If you listen to people, they've just started paying attention now a week before voting day.
Yeah, so
good.
Yeah. In a world where she hadn't kind of blown her opportunity, maybe she'd be standing out more. But it stands out to me that a committed and disciplined group can get you the buzz as the progressive candidate.
Yeah.
And now that we have ranked choice voting, like, people for the first time were like, well, I don't have to vote for the person I think will win. I can vote my conscience and then second choice rank. But that's kind of what was fueling it, because there was no longer a long shot candidate now that you have ranked voting.
Right.
So they were doing that. And I don't know. No one cares. Everyone's deflated. We're all gunning for the city council and the DA's races now.
Fair enough. We have our own disaster zones in Atlanta. Places where no light will reach. So we totally understand. So tell me about the Manhattan DA race. Obviously, Janos Martin was a good friend of ours. And just couldn't hang in there. So there's a different crowd. Obviously, we've got Talia Weinstein. There's Jenna Orr. I mean, you got the whole list. You do.
Yeah. The big names to note is Talia Weinstein, who's endorsed by Rahm Emanuel and Hillary Clinton.
Oh boy.
Yeah, she's definitely someone's kid. There was, ooh, this is bad because I can't remember her name. AOC endorsed her. She's the one I voted for. I did early voting.
Eliza Orleans or
No,
Tahashi,
Yeah.
Abushi, Tahani Abushi.
Tashi
She has incredible graphic design.
Yeah, and that's half the struggle.
I tell you.
The other like important only to me race, because I'm a city politics nerd, is comptroller. And Landers is like a legitimate left candidate, and he might win. If only because he's going against, again, that guy I mentioned before, Corey Johnson, who quit out of the mayor race after everyone screamed at him for a week.
Hell
Which is
yeah.
what we all want.
Yeah, and I'm just
like that.
I not to tell tales out of turns, but like you look into Johnson's biography, and I'm just looking at him like, okay, where are the strings? I'm just like, how did you go from like getting a lot of media buzz for coming out as a football star in high school to working at like Gawker to then being a city council member?
I mean, it kind of makes sense in as much as all clouded people and wealthy people are interconnected, right? Like you get into the circle a little bit, and you can just sort of weasel your way through the rest of it if you're determined enough.
I think it's just the black and white filter makes me conspiratorial.
You know?
Yeah, I should have a cigarette.
You're not
money.
talking about anything weird, though. You're talking about human social connections.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just how it works. You know, everything. This is the fundamental misunderstanding of politics for I think most people is everything is just people talking to other people.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about like
it's
Johnson's
which people
campaign,
you know to talk to.
the thing about Johnson's campaign that got me is that I kind of bought it for a long time because he was really good at like media messaging and like getting his face in places and seeming approachable and likable and like a real human being. And then he destroyed himself over an optics thing, like a totally meaningless vote.
Yeah.
It's like, live by the optics, die by the optics.
I feel like
It's tough though. It's, you know, there's optics is a minefield, right? Not to excuse this guy, but I mean, I do think when you see somebody like that, that's like a sincerely dangerous person, though. Because if you can understand the optics well enough to fake them for, like, I guess any duration of time, if you can really be that cynical about it and fully understand these things and just not give a shit, then I don't know. Those are the people that actually kind of frighten me.
Well, my other theory, and this goes back to the police actually run the city, is that he thought he had to make the vote because he thought he had a good chance of being mayor. And if you're seen as being anti-cop, they'll kill you, probably.
Right.
What really stands out to me is that it requires a lot of funding to compete up there.
Yeah, incredible amounts.
Just in order to even like be in the running, it seems like name recognition is really important.
It's not as much money as you'd think because we have a lot of matching funds programs. It really is name recognition, and that's why like Yang for a while was polling really high because people know his name from the mayoral race. And again, he's being funded by Tusk Venture Capital, who have like hollowed him out and put switches inside him.
Yeah, the other thing about that is we were talking about fundraising. And we were also talking about having the ability to not step on your own feet when it comes to messaging. Yang has done that just constantly over and over again. I think he'd still be in front right now if he wasn't, somebody sent him a memo to come out really hard on this Israel thing. And it kind of alienated people who didn't super trust him, but just knew him the best out of everything. And they were like, wow, that's too intense. Or is that how you feel? Or do you feel like he split his base with his statements? Or is there something else that's been hurting him?
There's the statements, and there's also just like his complete buffoonery. And it's not charming. It just seems weird and robotic. I don't know. Like the general consensus on the ground is that Eric Adams probably will win, and that we're probably going to end up in a situation where we have like a series of conservative minority mayors and an increasingly progressive city council. So nothing will get done, and the financial district will be underwater in 4 years.
Yeah, and so
that sounds incredibly.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like horse shit. But also, when these things happen, right? We know people tend to blame actually the liberal side for the inefficiencies, kind of no matter what.
Yeah.
And to be fair, you know, Dems currently have majority in Congress and have done this. So, like, I can see why, you know, even when they're holding themselves back, it might be tempting to blame them. But I wonder what sorts of things might they be able to plan, at least symbolically or, you know, performatively, even if they know that, you know, they're going to get vetoed or whatever, to buy some faith so that maybe for the next election, you know, if Republicans win the mayorship, you know,
the Republicans
they'll have better.
The Republicans will never live the mayorship because, again, New York is a one-party state. All of these people are Democrats.
The conservative Dems.
Yeah.
The Democrats.
Yeah. The conservative wing of our single capitalist party.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
there is a lot the city council can do, which is why I'm hopeful for these six DSA candidates. And there's a number of like not socialist, but still pretty progressive, and will caucus with them if necessary. People in the city council, and the city council can actually do quite a lot. Specifically, if it can bully the mayor. So whoever becomes speaker, that'll be really interesting. If it's not Johnson, but again, this is getting very intersign. I know it's the largest city in the country, but like this is real lanyard shit. So I'm going to stop.
It is lanyard shit, but just so that we have because I want people to at least have the battlefield in their heads. What are things that the city council could do to pressure a mayor on legislation? Does it just look like feuding statements, or is there procedural stuff? Like, what's it look like?
They can deny the mayor certain appointments. They can deny them certain powers and budgets. They do have veto power if they have like a really big majority. I think it's 3/4. I'm not sure, but yeah, you can. A weak mayor and a highly motivated council could do things. And some people are like, well, Yang will be easily bullied by the council. I'm like, no, that's the argument they made with Trump. Don't do that. Adams might be more effectively bullied.
Also, I feel like Yang, his entire sort of selling point is that he just doesn't give a shit what other people think. And it's like to the point of being toxic, right? Like it's to the point where he also doesn't give a shit what the experts think about the research they already did into problems he's just pulling answers out of his ass for.
He's not going to I think no peer reviewed.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're not going to, I don't think Yang is bullyable at all.
I don't listen to peer review because I have no peers.
Yeah, exactly. Like they walk among us, right?
Right. Well, like the general consensus, like the mayoral black pill mindset right now among the city is that Eric Adams would probably just be another like shitty conservative pro-cop mayor. We've had certainly a lot of those before. We know how to deal with them. Whereas Yang would be like, he'd walk to the podiums, the clouds would part, and like the Amazon airship would come in announcing, welcome citizens to your new positions. Prime is included with payment.
Right. God.
Which side are we on in that Alien versus Predator scenario?
I would rather be the Predator. Yeah. Honestly.
The Predator, like, it's an honest fight. You know, no one's running in like little tiny tubes.
Right. Is there anything we want to add about the New York mayor or Manhattan DA races?
Nah, I've got I think all the meat off that bone that I have questions for.
Vote Lander for comptroller if you do, because no one votes for comptroller, and he's really anti-real estate lobby. So
I've got one more question. Tell your listeners, what does a comptroller do?
It's basically the city CFO.
Okay, everybody. Go ahead.
And then they do a lot of stuff with land use. They work with the borough presidents.
Can they make anybody's life harder if we have a really pissed off comptroller?
Yeah, you could bind real estate deals into a lot of legal hurdles if you really wanted to.
Fuck with your landlord, comptrollers. All right.
No, that'd be great.
Let's come back and we will talk. I really want to talk about this. This is not related to politics at all, but we'll have fun talking about it. It is about an Italian villa that has faces, and it'll be fun to look at. All right, we'll be right back.
Faces has me concerned.
I just wanted to talk about the Italian villa where the houses have eyes.
I thought you said villain, and I was like, "What Italian villain?"
It is a village. It's a village. It's a village.
No,
It's a village
I thought
where the
there
houses
was an
have eyes.
N. Like I'm
Is
a bad
Leon
guy.
Kennedy going to run through it and shoot people?
Absolutely. So
Is this an Epstein thing? Because he had the wall of eyes too.
Oh God!
No comment yet. Let's look first. An architect has worked to save Aliano's unusual facial features thought to ward off the evil eye. Here is one of our Italian churches.
It's in pain!
This is an anthropomorphic house. It hosts a pizzeria and room for tourists. So we can all go to the angry face house.
It doesn't look angry. That, my friend.
It's got two eyebrows.
Anger.
That's an
We've all
face
felt
if
like
ever
this
I've
house
seen
is-
one. That
How's
house
the
is
emoji you
deep
think it
into
is?
throes of passion.
Maybe listen, Rachel. I don't know.
It's
We're
a
now we're
horny
deciding what. Now we're deciding whether this Italian house is a dom or a sub.
Obviously, that is the sub face.
I mean, I don't know.
Well, then again, the angry eyebrows are suggestive.
Yeah, the eyebrows lead me to feel like it's the dog face.
Yeah. Does this house eat pussy? That's the real question.
Does it have handles?
Yeah. But yeah, this is a city, you know, they're refurbishing the city and just some of it is just, you know, totally collapsing or whatever. But a lot of the houses in this village have faces. Like the arch looks like a mouth, or the chimney looks like an eye, and the nose, or the windows look like eyes. And because a lot of the city, the houses in the city were made by the same architecture, the same architect.
So it was intentional.
Say what?
So it was intentional. That house looks how I feel.
Yes, they didn't notice this as a fact, but just as a design trend or whatever, they know it. Like the guy came to this conclusion as he was working to fix the town that all of these houses made by the same architect had this style in common, and so it's become kind of a gimmick or a way to remember it and a way to talk about the town.
Okay, I have a question. Scroll down a little bit more to the face. So if you were to walk into there, you'd be walking into the building's mouth, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so my question is this Vor?
Yes.
Absolutely. This is, I call it.
And we did finally answer whether it's a top or bottom.
We did. I call it. It's a place that I'm calling Vor City.
So here's what I choose to believe. How many years ago were these built?
Good question. I think 18th, 19th centuries.
Okay, so this is early Vor, and I'm going to say it was on purpose. He was getting off to it. He did enjoy this in a sexual manner, which is why they're making specifically that kind of face.
Yeah.
Brandon's on the fence.
I love it. I love it. So there were, you know, years and years ago, there were 5 houses that were like this. And now apparently there are only a couple. And there were several houses like this for years. Now there's only one left. So I'm going to show the current, you know, that's in good condition anyway. And you'll see the and I believe this is the one that's the pizzeria. Yeah. We saw it from a different angle earlier. But
nice.
yeah,
So to our viewers, if you want to fund our trip, dang it. If you want to fund our trip to go see this and give you correct information, please feel free to donate.
yeah. I love that there's a face pizzeria that's in Italy that people can participate.
It's pretty meta when you think about it.
Super meta.
Yeah.
It's super meta.
Get eaten and
Everything's
eat some
meta with
pizza.
the right attitude.
Yep.
If that is not the you can eat anything once of meta-analysis.
Eat or be eaten.
Apparently both in this.
Yeah.
Apparently both.
They are not mutually exclusive.
So is the house face actually a switch?
I think that's where we're concluding. You know, it likes to both eat and be eaten. Whatever. Listen, one more thing before we get into this will get us to Kenzo, I think. Nevada law has banned racial mascots in schools. If you've got any name, logo, mascot, song, or identifier. Also, in the year 2020, no more sundown sirens. I just love.
It's a harmless sundown.
When we were kids and we used to make jokes about how like it's weird that they've got all this racist stuff like Martin Luther King Day. Oh, they just signed that in 1990. That's so absurd. But like every state in the country has some kind of really absurd racist law that's still on the books.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, this shit was happening. Like, the worst age of among the worst ages of, I think, just white supremacy as a problem and colonialism as a problem is like specifically the last or that period of like American expansion.
Yeah.
So like I think there are so many people who are still dealing with, I would say, the most ferocious period of racial animus happening to like their great grandparents, you know, like it, and their great great grandparents. Like this is not that far removed in terms of like human generations. These are not people who are completely unknown to us. And I think, you know, it's unfortunate, but I do think that this kind of radical change takes multiple generations, you know.
Now to be clear, you know, I'm sure that, you know, they probably just rang them all the time and it was just something that they did in town. There's probably some local talk radio host just saying these were just the bells. They marked the end of the workday and they're canceling us and, you know, that kind of shit.
Oh, I know what the local radio hosts are probably saying. See, this is what happens when the DSA takes over your Democratic Party. You get rid of the slurs and the racism bells.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like some of these racism bells, they were like first order of business. Holy shit.
And now And now it's been to, okay, next we have to make sure that we're not educating anybody on critical race theory in school because it's bad and racist. But we really care about that because we're a bunch of conservatives and we really care about how it is. Oh my God.
I think meaningfully, one of the reasons that this particular like iteration of white supremacy is failing and doomed to fail ultimately is because they can't think like that. Like they're not able to empathize in that way, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
They've also lost a lot of their like plausible deniability techniques.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh no, this is just about small tax status, or this is just about individual freedom. It's like, no, they're pretty naked about it. They're obsessed with winning the culture war because it's the only lever of power they don't have, and they're upset that they won. Cry about it.
Yeah, let me tell you, it's really sad. Listen, we're going to come back because I want to talk more about critical race theory. I want to talk more about education. Kenzo Shibata's in the house. Makes no sense to have Kenzo just sitting here waiting. It's go time. Hang tight, and we'll be back in a minute.
Good, yes. Hello. Welcome back.
I love
I
to
forgot I
catch
was on the show because
Wait,
I've been
wait.
listening to the podcast so much.
I don't know if they heard it because I was doing Fifth Element. Now it's time for Levitt to say the word of the day. And then we're going to listen. Now that we're all here, we're all back together. I would love to finally bring Kenzo into the room. What's up, dude? How you doing?
What's going on, Brandon?
Kenzo!
How's it going, y'all?
Everything is awesome. Everything's copacetic, man. How you
Glad to
doing?
hear it.
Yes.
A week and a half left of the school year,
Ah,
so I feel good. But yeah, it's a grind. The kids are checked out.
Yeah. Have you hit that sort of doldrums between the end of testing and the end of the year?
That's today starts that.
Ah, okay. So,
And
are you going to have the kids put shaving cream on their desks? I always loved doing that when I was
I'm
in school.
teaching virtually, so they're gonna have to be more
Mm.
creative if they want to play pranks.
Oh, I had a 8th grade teacher who duct taped a kid to the desk when he was sleeping.
Ooh,
Yeah.
don't challenge
He's
your
still
kids.
teaching.
Amazing.
Don't challenge your kids. They're only going to get more creative. They're gonna come with more ways to like make you to own you. We were talking about. Are you teaching your kids critical race theory over there in Chicago?
I am
That
teaching
is-
kids criticism.
Yeah.
Teaching them racial politics, and I'm
Yeah.
teaching them a lot of theory. So I'm not going to use that phrase so I don't get in trouble.
Okay.
But it's the same shit, yeah.
I mean, it sounds like everything that every teacher, like any teacher, would just have the discretion to talk about the
Mhm.
origins of the country. Like, we had an econ teacher who was a Reaganite, and they tried to structure their lessons as fucking propaganda, and nobody ever took him to the Wall Street Journal. Let me tell you.
Mhm. Yeah, I teach at a majority black school, and I teach social science. So I'm going to teach to boys. I'm going to teach what I'm going to
Mhm.
teach. So I'm also very fortunate because I am in an urban district where
Yeah.
like the school board, at least, they're into woke washing curriculum.
Yeah.
But, like, if I still give them good materialist critical race theory, like no, I'm not going to get in trouble for it, I guess is what I'm saying. So I'm very lucky in that.
We're not, who am I speaking for? I'm not an educator. How much discretion do you have when putting together a curriculum for the year?
I have quite a bit, and part of that is because social sciences aren't tested. So we can kind of do what we want as long as we're challenging the kids. I'm at an international baccalaureate school, so there are certain like guidelines we have, like we have to, and I love all of them. Like, we have to have like an internationalist scope to no matter what we teach. So even if we're teaching U.S. history, I'm teaching about imperialism. I'm teaching about, what is Western hegemony and all that. So I always find a way of like, they'll say, this is the standard. And then I'm like, well, this is how I'm going to teach that. And if you don't agree with it, you don't test it anyway. So they'll never find out. Math
That's
teachers
awesome.
aren't.
I sure wish my kids had that.
Is there a form of math that we can teach that would make Republicans just as mad as critical race theory?
No.
Like, does each subject have like a way that we can make conservatives super mad?
Did you all see on what was it? It was on one of those right wing Hannity. They had this supposed North Korean defector, and she was talking about how in North Korea they're as anti-American in their curriculum as they are in the Ivy Leagues, because they're talking about like the woke university. Like that was the message they were trying to put out there. And she was saying that when she was a little girl, they had to answer a problem in class like, there are 6 American bastards and 2 of them died. How many American bastards are left?
Amazing. I'm
like,
into it. This is great. Are you kidding me? Love it. Love this idea. Let's bring this home. How many awful imperialist colonizers are there?
Listen, go ahead.
I do actually think this might be a decent segue to talk a little bit about learning things.
Sure.
Because Marjorie Taylor Greene recently learned about the Holocaust.
That's a really ambitious segue. That's the kind of segue you can only do when you're on a team like this.
And a Jew.
Just found about racism, man. That shit sucks me.
Yeah, right. Like, and I mean, a lot of people are saying it's cynical that she totally knew what it was and she's doing a stunt. A lot of people are completely misunderstanding what the fucking Holocaust was about, including Israel. And we're coming for you later, Israel. We have to have a talk. And, I don't know. I think actually she graduated from the University of Georgia. I graduated from a Georgia public school. Every one of us had to do this like Georgia history class or exam. It was amazing. It was amazingly racist. It was like all about Oglethorpe. Like I actually like failed it the first time and barely passed it the second time and didn't care because I thought the whole thing was awful. But based on the curriculum I was exposed to for our own history, and based on the number of just sincerely stupid people I have met who are UGA grads because they're rich as shit, and because they sort of bought their way through it barely, those folks make me think that it was sincere and that actually Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't really know what the Holocaust was. What do y'all think?
Did she ever witness the veiled masquerade balls or anything like that in her past too?
Oh man, I mean, probably. I wouldn't be surprised if there's pictures of her with a burning cross on top of Stone Mountain. Like,
well, here's the thing. These people. Those people were like really famous actresses. Like they all came up like politicians. That's a young politician. That's a totally different sphere of infotainment. I doubt they're holding any balls for young politicians. Although there are many exceptions, but you know what I mean.
Well, I mean,
Um,
did she go to one of those white flight religious schools that were invented to avoid taxation? Because like those basically just don't teach anything.
Yeah, listen. I have songs that I want to sing that aren't appropriate for this moment, so I won't do it. It's a terrible situation. And in terms of the Holocaust Museum, I think that she's got to find new ways to draw attention, and you can't just bird dog AOC for 2 years. Like, it stops making news.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't just follow people around and yell at them like, "Where are you hiding the vaccine?" or whatever she's doing. So she's got to find new things to do, and she knew all she had to do was go to this, and the libs would fill the blank. It's a little bit like what's her name, Laura Ingraham, doing the Nazi salute at the Trump 2016. It's like,
Right.
you guys are going to get so mad pointing this out that I don't have to do that much. And those are always good, effective media manipulations. And because they're ones that the left can't help but fall for, because they're all trained to yell at subtext anyway.
Yeah, what's interesting too. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was actually about to tag you in.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, so there's a messaging that some Zionists are using now that an anti-critical race theory one that basically, like, they're anti-critical race theory because they feel like it diminishes the Holocaust essentially as one of the oppression. It's fucked up, but it's just interesting that they would use that messaging when it is clear that in some places people don't know that much about the Holocaust. Like where I grew up, it's like written into state law that we have genocide education, and then like every once in a while a lawmaker will feel good about themselves, so they'll write in, they'll do a amendment to add Sudan to it or something like that. But like, by the time you're in, ninth grade in a Chicago public school, the Holocaust pretty well. But yeah, imagine like much of the country is not like that, especially in private schools. Private schools don't have to follow those kind of laws.
Well, and especially in religious private schools, right? Like, that is one of the ways I think the right has most effectively propagandized younger people, is specifically through religious education. And organization generally, right? Like, I remember like all of the rich kids were in Young Life when I was in high school, which was like this church basically. But it was this church of like the same politics for everybody, like there were these sort of, it was a country club church, like one of those kind of places. Like, it was very exclusive and very like, we do all of our business here, and if you are in the clique, you're good, and if you're not, you're sort of disposable.
A non-divisional religious group?
No, it was some kind of Christian. And I assume some kind of evangelical Christian, but honestly, I don't know. Like, I have no idea what exactly it was. But it was just this very consistent thing, like, that it was always recruiting within our school. Like actively trying to get like people to join in the school. They were using the kids to recruit other kids during school hours and stuff like that. I, of course, never got invited because I'm a kike, and they don't want my kind anywhere near them, lest I don't know, Jew them up with my bad genes, which, to be fair, I do have bad genes. I did get bred like, a Labrador retriever with hip dysplasia or whatever, but it was definitely like a very clear pipeline for folks from like joining this religious group to economic security to like good placements and things, and like high paying starter jobs and stuff like that. Like, it was very clearly a pipeline. Yeah. I feel like I've like killed the conversation with that one a little bit.
No, I think that the reason why that there was a lull in the conversation was because I personally wanted to throw it to Alyssa to talk about her associations with religious groups and organizations. But since we're waiting on Alyssa, Kenzo, any weird or interesting religious organizations that you lived with, grew up with, anything?
I was raised pretty irreligiously. Like I joke that I was raised Jewish with a hyphen in it.
Yeah,
And then
so you're
later on
Jewish.
in life, like what's our
I said, yeah, so you're Jewish.
exactly. So like later on in life, like I found a religious community, a Jewish community that like I feel very comfortable in. We're non-Zionist, but officially, but because it's a social justice driven congregation, we're pro-Palestine, like end of
Right.
sentence, pro-Palestine. So it's one of those things where like if you're non-Zionist but you believe in humanity, you're going to be an anti-Zionist. So in our congregation actually started because our rabbi was pushed out of his old congregation that I was a part of because he had a change of heart and became a BDS organizer and activist, Rabbi Brant Rosen. And then the board of directors of the congregation supported him through the whole thing, but it was a small group of hardcore Zionists that were in there, that liberal Zionists, that they were just constantly putting things forth to the board, like they wanted Rabbi to take record of all of the events that he speaks at or all the protests he's at. It was basically a way of just killing him with bureaucracy. And he realized that it was, causing a strain within the congregation, and he wasn't enjoying being a rabbi much at that point. So he left to be an organizer for a while. And then a group of folks from the old congregation came together, organized it, and said, okay, you're the rabbi now. And now he's our full-time rabbi. We don't have a building, but we have a few hundred members, and he's paid full-time. Interestingly enough, I just talked to him recently, and we're actually pretty much an anti-Zionist congregation, and he said he's performed more conversions now than in his entire career, like combined.
Yeah.
Now that people are finding that you can be in an anti-Zionist Jewish community, people who are curious are joining like in droves.
Yeah, I would really, really like to find one of those here in Atlanta. If you're watching this and you are in Atlanta and you know of one, please DM me. I am desperate to find like some kind of Reform temple or synagogue that I can like join and like disassimilate. Like I want to come back, please. The Nazis chased me out of my own, ethnic religious background, and I would like to know these people actually. So I think it's so awesome that you have that for your community. I am sincerely jealous. And it does not surprise me in the least that, now that there's an option for people who, like you said, are capable of humanity, all of them are trying to come back now. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of Jewish people, especially descendants of the Holocaust, have been really compelled by the last, 6-7 years of U.S. politics, and really even as long as Gitmo, to try and do something about this. And I think a lot of us are feeling very, not like nostalgic, but I guess longing or yearning or like wistful perhaps for what might have been, if we had known these identities, or, wistful. And also, I think, it's like the people who have that heritage of that Holocaust trauma. We can't look at what's happening now and not see, like, not just what's happening now, but also the several generations of pain that are going to happen no matter what. They've already happened. Like, we might be able to lessen them, but the trauma these people have lived through, these children have lived through, is going to cause serious intergenerational damage. And I think that there's really been like a desire for, within the sort of secular Jewish community, to get back in touch with those roots and get back in touch with the people who remember what happened and who like have our stories so that we can do something about it. Because it is the time. This is now. Like, never again is now. We're doing it now. And I think there are a lot of people who are just desperate for that.
Yeah, I think about my buddy Nate, who he grew up very observant. His mother was a shofar blower for the congregation. So she taught him, like, she was actually, they're actually like shofar blower magazines. And Nate's mom has been on the cover multiple times of one of them. So, it was something that's very important to him. He grew up and then got very involved in socialism. He was a member of the ISO for like 15 years, up until it ended. And then I think he always felt Judaism missing from his life, at least observance, because he's an atheist. And now he's our shofar blower, and he's on the board of Zedek Chicago. And he's just so full of happiness and love because of it and he's a natural organizer. I mean, he's not just a natural organizer, but he's been organizing for 20 years of his life. He's bringing lots of people in. Like it's such
yeah. And I mean, I think that is the utility of these kinds of communities, of like religious communities, and really of any community, religious or otherwise. It's when you show up for each other and are willing to like build something with each other and do something productive with each other, you create surplus every time. And so like when you create community for one person, they bring people with them who see it, who say like, this is a community I want to be a part of.
Can you believe that
grows exponentially?
Can you believe that Rachel doesn't want to become a pastor? You could become a life coach at any time. Yeah.
We were talking about this at length today about why I don't start a religion. And it's because like, even if I trust me to run a religion, which I'm not sure I do, I don't think I should have that kind of control over anybody. But even if I did somehow trust me to do this, like, I don't trust the people who come after me. I don't trust my kids who are raised in it. Like I think it's extremely difficult to ensure that those kinds of structures continue to be run by philosopher kings who are always in far too short a supply.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the problem with organizations as a whole. It's a problem with families, honestly. I mean, but it's a family, but an institution, and you don't know who's gonna, how strong the institution will be after you leave.
Yeah.
And that's just how it goes for everything that we make. But hopefully you're doing something that the people who are closest to you appreciate. I guess life is full of give and takes and all that good stuff. But I always think, is it something that, to just backtrack, what are the questions that we ask ourselves when we're organizing? And really what your output is really just, what are the questions that you asked yourself when putting this together? So, is this inclusive? You got to ask before you talk. Media criticism is one thing, but is it inclusive? Being, am I going to meet this person? Am I figuring out what their thing is? Am I like? There's a whole lot of sub questions, and when we talk about like, is this a thing that's going to be effective and long term, not just for the next year, but hey, is this something that can be useful and helpful to people in 5 years or 10 years? We've got to at least think.
You want your systems and you want your infrastructure to be durable. You want it to be able to be passed off to somebody, and if somebody really awful gets a hold of it, they can't do too much damage.
Well, I mean, look. I mean, you're making DSA. That's not fun. No one wants to do that. There's got to be
of course it's not. But that's there's no getting around it.
Yeah, no.
Like, there's no version of life where you don't have to negotiate with the people around you constantly.
Don't.
That is what it means to be human.
Sure, but that doesn't mean we've got to make an institution where we've got, I mean, bands don't have to last forever to be good bands. Social institutions, like, it's important. Like, durability is something we should think about. But it doesn't have to be our sole. Like, it's a little bit arrogant to think, oh, we have to make the people's institution as ourselves as organizers, as, we're all in the living room putting that on ourselves. It's also okay if, hey, we've got a campaign we want to do and 4 people want to do it. Hey, go do it. If you've got something where 15 people want to do it, hey, go do that. Basically, my whole point is, what we're doing can come in multiple formats based on, just in the same way that, like, we had a podcast with 3 people, we do an organization with like a few hundred people, we do a media group and there's 8 people and they all do slightly different things. And I think that's okay.
Mm-hmm. In any case, I think you're right about all organizations having the same fundamental weakness.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so important to educate ourselves about these mechanisms of oppression and marginalization, not just so that we can recognize them as applied to us, but recognize them as aspects of who we are and, you know, the privileges that we have and the ways we've been trained to inadvertently marginalize people, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, it is entirely possible to backslide from this, which is my segue into Israel and their current fuck shit. Because, oh my God.
Smooth segue. Way to go.
There is some fuck shit happening in Israel, folks. So I guess, where should we start with this one?
Do you want to talk?
I think obviously we know that they were doing a lot of shelling in Gaza for, you know, like 2 weeks, some extraordinarily long amount of time. It was a literal bloodbath. 70 kids died. They called a ceasefire that just fell apart Tuesday night. So,
and I think there are 2 things that are worth pointing out. First of all, there is a new prime minister, and there is incredible political pressure on this fella. I think, there's incredible.
Well, but it's not just that, right? Their new prime minister is very right wing. Has said it's fine to kill Arabs.
Right.
Has literally sanctioned in a very sort of Trumpian way this death to Arabs march that's, you know, you can think of it kind of similar to like Charlottesville, Unite the Right rally type stuff, because it was an Israel Day celebration ostensibly. And, you know, it marks a really disturbing turn for the worse because, of course, when they were chanting the streets saying they were going to kill all of them, Hamas responded with little fire like balloons. So they were just starting fires throughout, you know, the line of Israel compared to Gaza and the West Bank. And now they're just shelling them all over again. So they've just completely broken the ceasefire. They continue to bomb the buildings. Who knows how long it's going to last? But I am increasingly concerned for people's safety over there because the people who are currently running it quite literally have expressed interest in doing like ethnic cleansing and extermination. And it's terrifying. And every single Jew should have just goosebumps on the back of their neck and their blood running cold right now because we have seen this before and we know what it is. You know, this like rally through the town that led to the city getting bombed is not that far removed from a Kristallnacht. We know better. And that's my piece on it. Kenzo, I want to invite you to speak on it as well because I know you're in the community. What do you think?
Not very hopeful. You know, I think it's you know, we hit that point where BB's name is mud, and it took a lot of time. And you know, I you know, other than like hardcore Zionists, no one likes him. So, you know, it's something that I see in Chicago public schools all the time is like you'll have a CEO, the head of the schools, that will like force us into a strike and do all this political damage to both us and themselves, and then leave. And then there's a new leader. And then there's this whole period, like, you know, give them a chance. Why can't we give them? And I remember liberals saying that about Trump too. So I'm seeing probably the same cycle we're going to see. Like, you know, there's a PR campaign right now because Israel is not looking good at all amongst people who are probably like kind of unallied before. And people that I think just kind of accepted the DC consensus that we have to protect Israel and it's a third rail. People aren't buying into that as much. So I think that there's going to be a kind of a shift in the character of things, and they might change some of the way that they message things over time. But yeah, I think we just have to all stay on the course, you know, continue BDS, continue, you know, wherever we can to support, you know, fight our politicians who try to throw all that money at Israel, you know, do everything we can on our side. But yeah, I don't think anything's going to happen within Israel to make it good for Palestinians.
Yeah, I hate to say it so grimly. I hope that we can get a little more organized in the diaspora and try to do something about this more than we've been doing. It is a moment, I think, of intense responsibility for us, and it's, we'll see. I guess we'll see what happens. We can only do so much from here, but I agree with you on BDS. I agree with you on petitioning. Our officials, I think we should be probably making lots of calls and organizing lots and lots of phone banks about this one to harass public officials about it. I think probably we should be planning demonstrations on it. I know lots of places already are, and it's awesome. But I think this is one that's worth really making noise about. And I don't know.
And I think
maybe if we do it here, I'll be able to sort of walk backwards into creating a synagogue of people who were like anti-Zionist. Maybe this is the secret.
And there are also lots of local campaigns that are targeted at that issue.
Yeah, there are many, which are very, very good. I know PSL's doing one right now. They've been demonstrating and doing actions and making lots of noise, which is good.
Guys, I'm going to step out a little bit earlier than usual. I've got so much going on, and I want to nail it. This has always been rad, and I love it. And please don't start like one of those things where one person leaves and then everybody else leaves. That's not always great for the chats. So let me get out of here. I love it. I'll see all of y'all. Bye.
Later, Brandon.
Bye.
Yeah,
well,
I'm
listen,
I'm
hanging out for a bit. Although I will say I am probably going to dip a little early as well today because, frankly,
we can all dip. We can all dip. No one's paying us. School's out for the summer. School's out forever. I
this for free.
I did want to check in with Kenzo and see how Kenzo's doing. Kenzo, how are you doing?
Doing okay. I'm just so happy that the school year's over. So I'm just looking at like I bought my first propane grill together today. So I'm still gonna be active, but grill pilled maybe 70% of the day.
That's good stuff.
That's what the summer I think is gonna look like.
Grill pill is the chill pill. You got to get really into Jimmy Buffett too.
That might be a bridge.
You got to go all the way. If you don't go all the way, you're not committed enough to the grill pill. You got to get into Jimmy Buffett. If you are not singing boat drinks cheeseburger while you are grilling. Yeah, exactly.
Isn't Sublime another option though, instead of Jimmy Buffett for like chill music?
There's a lot of options because I've been saying this and I've observed this. This is hot yacht rock summer.
Ooh.
We're wearing white linen. We're wearing ecru shorts. We have slip-on shoes. We are convincing ourselves cocaine is not habit forming. We're eating oysters and grilling octopus, and Steely Dan is playing somewhere.
Beautiful.
You know what? That's a beautiful image. I would actually probably hang out in any of these. I think
I do like linen in the summer.
That's why I'm wearing these Breton stripes.
Yeah. I've gotten really into, I've gotten a couple of outfits recently from like those like online secondhand shops or whatever. And because of that, I've been able to afford things that are not polyester. And holy shit, that makes a difference.
Nice.
It's magnificent. Like having natural fabric, like against your skin, cotton, just wicking. It's good stuff.
Breathing.
I feel like rayon is my new favorite fabric, actually, for summer.
Well, Rachel, you probably know this because you're in a much more humid atmosphere, but I still remember when I switched from wearing jeans all the time to wearing like cotton twill, and I'm like, oh, my legs aren't constantly coated in sweat all the
time. Yeah, it's wild because cotton is in fact insulating.
Yeah, no, and now I have like seersucker shirts. It's amazing.
Yeah, good stuff. We love it. This is definitely still about politics, not just about fashion.
Well, it is about politics because as the earth continues to heat up, we will need more natural fibers as to not die.
This is true.
And polyester is itself a petroleum product, and the most amount of plastic in the ocean is from fast fashion, which is a petroleum byproduct because oil is too damn cheap.
Yeah. Well, and that ultimately is why I've been trying to avoid buying anything new at all, and also specifically buy, natural fabrics, because I don't want to contribute to that anymore.
Yeah, I was doing
like any of it. I'm
doing
out.
a little research project on like the Alpha Sigma male bullshit, and they all first of all, they're all speaking directly to people who are like fearful that they might be betas. And they're like, so this is how you become alpha. And almost every one of their like how-to videos, they say, look at fast fashion, H&M, Zara. They're like, they have it sold. Like, this is how you become a human being, is like, just go to these stores and do this. It's hilarious how all this shit's just so tied in together.
Okay, I have two things.
Well, I mean, when you think of every single aspect of your political identity as strictly aesthetic, it makes as much sense as anything,
Okay.
John, you're going to say a thing.
Yeah, I have two things. One, I find it amazing that pickup artists are accelerating climate change. And two, the whole alpha beta dynamic, as we all know, was taken from a flawed and disavowed study of wolves in the 1970s. And the proof of that is, did you see the thing online about how when they reintroduced wolves into Yellowstone National Park, it had all these knock-on effects, like rivers became more steady, meadows became more diverse. The deer population actually became more stable and healthier because they weren't like breeding out of control, and they weren't eating all the saplings that would prevent the forest from spreading, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
As a result of this, they decided to keep very close track of the wolves. And there's a book out now called The Phenomenal Druid Pack, which is about the observations of this one pack they followed. And in particular, someone known as Wolf Number 21, who is apparently the king of the wolves. He never lost a fight. He never killed a defeated opponent. He shared all of his food with the weakest members of the tribe. And he would give like rivals the option to exile rather than kill them. It was amazing. There's a whole Twitter thread on it. I definitely recommend it. Wolf 21. And again, proof there are no alphas. It's just a series of interconnected families.
Yeah, but I mean, that is the truth. We are fundamentally social species, and we have an extensive class hierarchy. Honestly, if you look at apes, usually it's the women. It's usually the females who actually run the class hierarchy as such. In ape society. So who knows what's going on here? I guess we just did a real weird inversion, and it took all of this to make it happen.
I blame agriculture.
I think, honestly, I think what it came down to is, our capacity to imagine God in our own image kind of fucked us. Is what it is. I think there are some people who have mistaken the voice in their own head for God's voice. And I think through that, a lot of horrific things were justified. And not necessarily any one particular region, right? I think the greatest of human evil is in our capacity to imagine other people doing things that are evil. And a lot of the most evil things we do are because we're trying to protect ourselves against imagined evils that might happen to us. Which is why we're uniquely tortured compared to, I think, most other animals. But when it comes to like capacity for social understanding and communication and empathy, I mean, canines are really like uniquely good at it. They are, I mean, magnificently socially intelligent. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that they would have much more complex relationships.
Yeah. Plus, with dogs specifically, we've been breeding them to understand our emotions for 10,000 years. They're literally our companion species.
Yeah, no, they exist with us. We exist with them. It's so, if you've had a dog and you understand the mind of a dog, it becomes very obvious very quickly how intelligent they are socially. A lot of people do the alpha beta thing on their own dogs, and that's obviously not true either. If you, and this is going to probably make some people very mad, so I'm going to lean in real good and say this. If you listen to your dog's opinions, you'll have a much better relationship with your dog. Your dog is constantly trying to tell you things that your dog would like. Your dog is not telling you they want these things because they're selfish and inconvenient. It's because they need them. They are expressing needs to you. And when they don't do things that you ask them to do, it's because they don't want to. Why they don't want to is a whole bunch of things. And if your dog gets off leash and runs away from you, it's because you beat them once you catch them. Thanks. That's all I had to say. Treat a dog more like a person and treat people more gently generally.
One anecdote that I always love is Ichiro Suzuki. He's a ball player originally from Japan, and he was playing for the Mariners for a while. And he spoke in broken English, and I think he kind of like used that as a comedic device sometimes, because an interviewer interviewed him when he came here, and they're like, "So was it a hard decision to move to the U.S.?" And he says, "Well, first I had to talk to my dog, and my dog had to think about it for a while." And my dog said, "I think it's okay." So then we made the move. And reporters did not know what to make of it. And I'm just like, he might be trolling, but there might also be some truth to that.
I mean, I don't think dogs understand things of the abstract quite as acutely as we do. Good for them, frankly. God, ignorance is bliss, right? But I do think that like dogs have really complex understandings of language and of relationships and of themselves and themselves and the other as different beings. I think that they pick up on a lot of that in ways that we often underestimate.
Rachel, have you been following the dog language training, Bunny?
Bunny?
Oh yeah,
like
Bunny
rabbit?
is the dog's name is Bunny, and it's undergoing language training, so it can express its desires more firstly. It has a series of buttons it can press to express certain concepts. Yeah. It's really interesting watching the dog start to put things together. For example, anything above its eye line is upstairs.
That's so cool. It's like when you teach gorillas sign language and they use it to create novel language. It's so cool. Language is the coolest thing animals do. It is my favorite. I wish in a different world that had been fair, I could have only ever studied language. It would have been so fun.
There's a cat doing it as well, and the interesting thing is the cat's. I think because the cat was started on it later, like it was fully adult, whereas the dog was raised on it as a puppy.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
The cat's sort of concepts are less complicated. Like the dog has a concept of time, like day, afternoon, evening, whereas the cat is just now or later. But the cat is creating more novel constructs. Yeah. For example, when it hears another cat or it sees another cat, it refers to that cat by its name. Like that's a Billy. That's one of me. And it created the term mom pets. Meaning, I don't want mom to pet me. I want to pet mom to mean I want to mark mom. She smells funny.
Huh. That's amazing. That's so cool. I want to do all of these things.
Cool.
Yeah, no. Billy Speaks on YouTube. It's actually really interesting. Its favorite word is mad.
Mad. The cat?
I'm mad. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. That is sort of a cat's personality. They're very fussy creatures.
Yes.
I love them, though.
Whereas the dog famously can't understand what work is. Like, why can't you just play all the time? It's very sad.
Yeah, well, and that's sort of the thing is dogs live in the moment. Like their sort of understanding of things is immediately present. But they don't, like I said, they don't have that sort of imagination necessarily in the same way we do. Although they can do like basic predictions, and I would not be surprised if we are slowly breeding them to be even more sentient. Because we actually recently, there was a study released where dogs passed the Rouge test, or like a modified smell-based version. Where like they noticed that their own smell had been changed. They were like, what is going on with this? Which is, the same sort of reaction that we look for in, apes who we are testing for sentience, right? So like, if they have a mark on their face that they're sedated while it's put on, and then they look in the mirror and they like are messing with it, which you can see, like they'll like touch it, they'll sniff it, they like are trying to figure out what it is on their own face, then they have an abstract understanding of what their own face is and that it has changed, that they have changed. And I think that's a very crucial component of our style of sentience. It's called autonoetic imagining or autonoetic something. but you're imagining yourself in a different context, and it's this huge developmental thing that happened and fundamentally changed really social lives as such.
Well, seabirds for the first time were witnessed using tools, so that's cool.
Cool.
Puffins, to be exact. They were using
Very cool.
they were using sticks to scratch their back furs.
Yeah, I love that.
It felt
That's
so
adorable.
good, the first puffin to figure that out.
Right, and then they were learning it from each other.
Yeah.
Well,
I
I
gotta-
remember. So I had 2 dogs. One of them ended up living with my mom for complicated reasons involving having a baby. But he's a sweet boy and we love him, and his name is Ari, and he's still my dog. He just lives with my mom now. When I was raising him with my other dog, Asa, Asa is one of those dogs that's just freaky brilliant, can learn a new trick in like 5 repetitions, like won't necessarily do it if she doesn't feel like it, but like just one of those people dogs, right? Ari is a pit bull. So he's a bit of a brick. He's beautiful. He's, hewn from stone. He's got this adorable little brown spot on his eye, and he's not very bright. And even he, when I was trying to teach him tricks, new tricks, I would teach Asa first, and then I just taught him the first and most important trick, which is watch Asa. And I would use, the eyes and the gestures and the pointing, because dogs understand pointing. Fun fact. And you say, watch Asa, and just train him to do that. And it actually worked. He would learn things faster if I taught Asa first. So I wonder, how many species are out there doing this kind of cool stuff who just haven't tried it yet, I wonder what set of cosmic jiggling needs to happen for something like that to catch on, and for us to realize that these animals are way more sentient than we're giving them credit for. Not just some of them, but most of them.
Crows are going to start looking over your shoulder at the ATM, steal your credit card, and take out a bunch of money.
I hope so.
I gotta head out now.
I'm Team Corvids. All right, well, it was great seeing you, Kenzo. I'm actually going to head out.
Oh.
Do you have some stuff you want to bump before you go?
Oh, just Sunday, Meet the Left on twitch.tv/class time, 6 p.m. Central Time. Please tune in, and we appreciate all the subs.
I've been on it. It's a lot of fun. I love it. We love Kenzo. He's great.
Good time.
Thanks for coming and hanging out with us, Kenzo. We'll see you again soon.
I'll take care.
So I'm going to head off because my broken body is screaming. But it was great seeing you. It was great seeing all of you, everybody. It is great to be back in the saddle with everyone and just sort of, screaming into the void, I guess, but in a fun way. If you would like to contribute monetarily to this project where we get together and talk about, dogs with cool organizers, and also talk theory and talk about, what's happening in current events and how we got here, and sometimes how we might even get out of here, you can go to patreon.com/notsafe. You can also go to twitch.tv/notsafemedia. It's a great time. It's good shit. You should follow us. Yeah, we'll talk to y'all soon. See you next week.
Adios.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.